Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Fair Game Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Smith. Today's guest is joining us from Orlando, Florida, where he is the head of the Central Florida Fair. He is Michael Tipton. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we're talking real briefly before we got started recording. You have got an event going on right now on grounds, and you're just a few weeks from starting fair. What event's going on down there at the Central Florida Fairgrounds right now?
It's an event called Hamcation. It's a convention of ham radio enthusiasts. So we've got our entire 87 acres is taken up with ham radio guys right now.
Seriously, there's that many?
Yeah, yeah. There's a
Wow,
lot of
my
them.
dad back in the day, I think even when I was a young kid or maybe right before I was born, my dad was a ham radio operator. He may still have his gear. I don't know. That's cool. I didn't know there was a convention for people like that.
I didn't either until I started working here, and now I know. And it's definitely an interesting weekend. Everybody comes in their RVs and kind of camps out here and does little seminars, and they swap and they trade war stories and they have a good time.
87 acres of ham radio operators. It's kind of wild. That's definitely,
I didn't know there were that many ham radio people in the planet.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're used to
they're all here.
Yeah, I mean, we're used to like there's a Lego convention or there's a gun show or there's something like that, but I'd never a ham radio operators convention.
Yeah, we do all those weird things, the gun show, the CD record show, the guitar shows, all those things. So
that's cool. So listen, by the time this airs here in a couple of weeks, you will be just days away from opening your 2024 fair. What can fair guests expect from the 2024 edition of the Central Florida Fair?
A lot of new things, actually. Last year was my first year with the fair, and I kind of decided to just kind of keep it in the same format as it had been for years, and I wanted to see how that worked before I changed anything. So we identified some areas that didn't get as much traffic as other areas, and so we came up with an idea to put something on a side of the fairgrounds that didn't get as much traffic last year as I wanted it to. So we have something called Bazaar Boulevard now, and it's like an oddities and curiosities market. We have a circus tent over there, a haunted house, a pop-up escape room, fire jugglers, chainsaw jugglers, all sorts of stuff. And there's tarot card readers, palm readers, all that kind of stuff. So
is that down on that end on that building that I was in where it just, man, it was such a blow through. People came in and they went straight down to the midway.
Yes. So the building you were in is our east entrance to the fairgrounds comes through that building, but it was mostly in the past, it's been mostly like 4-H exhibits and arts and crafts exhibits.
Right.
So people with kids might hang out and do the take home crafts, and you might go check out the art if one of your students made it. But we felt bad because people just kind of went in the building and just like took a hard right and went out to the fairgrounds to get on the ride. And so I always felt bad for people I put in there because you guys didn't get the traffic I wanted you to get. So this year we've got a whole vendor area in there. We have a haunted house in there.
Oh wow.
If you've ever heard of the video on Netflix called The Last Blockbuster, we actually have The Last Blockbuster in there. The lady from the video is in there with her blockbuster.
Interesting.
So, yeah, we've got a lot of interesting vendors in there inside that building and outside that building, and hopefully it keeps people in our area of our independent vendors over there and visiting them. And
yeah, for sure. That's a clever idea. I think that's the kind of the oddities thing I'm interested to see. I'll have to check back in with you maybe at convention and see how that went, because that actually sounds really fascinating.
Well, we want to try it out and see how it goes. And, it's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Well, we were doing the same thing for a while. So now we're just going to start trying new things. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, we'll move on and try something else. So
yeah, for sure.
There's some neat new things.
That it's cool to hear that when you came in last year was your first fair and you just kind of let it be status quo, kind of, because that gave you the opportunity, it seems like, to observe and see what the culture was and what was going on at the fair. I think I've seen over the years, and every now and then I hear about it where, a fair manager, entertainment director, somebody shares tips, spills the tea with me but there's so many fair managers that'll come in the first year, they flip the entire fair upside down. And it's like, you almost gotta, as a new leader like you are, you gotta come in and do that route you did. Well, let's just see what it is. Let's
Yeah.
understand what the beast is before we start trying to tame it.
Well, exactly. I mean, a lot of people came at me with a lot of different, I think we should do this and I think we should do that. And not to say they were wrong or right or whatever, but I wanted to see it for myself before I decided if it really needed to be fixed. And there are some things like the traffic areas that didn't get hit last year. The main entrance to the fair, we're reworking it a little bit because it would get incredibly backed up and the flow was just bad. So when I brought it up, people were like, "Oh, it's always been bad." Like, well, then fix it.
Fix
So,
it.
why don't we fix it?
Oh,
Like,
so you got to hear, well, we've always done it that way a whole lot in this transition into being the fair manager down there.
oh yeah, well, I mean, the Sean before me was here for 10 years, and the person before him was here for I don't know 20-ish years or
Yeah.
something. So there's a whole lot of this is just the way we do it, and maybe that's a good thing about coming from outside the fair industry. I was like, I don't know how you do it, but this looks a little silly, so why don't we change it?
Right. Yeah. And you have mentioned previously, I know when we met, you'd talked about, were you in Texas before you came to Central Florida?
I was in Texas, and I've been my career. I've been in venue management, but as a performing arts center person, a convention center person, and an arena person, more on
Right.
the um, performing arts kind of end of it, and other than fair. We had a fair at one of my properties, but it was just they rented the space and here you go. I wasn't intimately involved with it, other than kind of like here trying to suggest they improve some things with flow and stuff like that.
Right.
So, from you can stand back and watch something and realize it doesn't work. But
Yes.
that's so yeah, that was my first fair last year.
Yeah. Now, how did you end up coming to the Central Florida Fair?
It's
Oh, there's a
interesting
story
story.
there. Anytime I ask a question and it's answered with a laugh, there's a story behind this.
Well, had been in Texas and I got transferred back to South Georgia with the company I was with because that's home, South Georgia. I kind of grew up in Florida, but I was born up there, and I was enjoying it. But the company was going through some transitions of being acquired by another company and growing pains, and people weren't really happy with how it was going. So a friend of mine that I used to work down in South Florida, she saw this job posting and sent it to me and said, "Look, I know you want to get back to Florida, so check this out." I was like, I don't want to work at a fairgrounds. Why would you send this to me? And because I mean, I'd never done it before,
Right.
it didn't really jump out at me as, let's tackle this next in your career. She's like, no, 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 it's so much more. Like yes, there's the fair, but there's stuff going on all year round. So I
Right.
came down, I visited the place, I like it. And yeah, I wanted to get back to Florida. This was a great way to get back to Florida. And I last year the fair terrified me a little bit, but we got through it, and I was surprised at how much I was looking forward to the next one because of the problems. Like I think I know how to solve this problem. Let's start planning for next year and try and see if we have a better outcome and how it goes. So in a way, I don't have the same constraints maybe somebody else who's been doing this forever had. I just kind of came in
Sure.
and saw it as just another event, granted a
Yeah.
gigantic, but just another event, and we can make it better.
So when you move from, performing arts and like more venue management, conventions, things like that, and then you come to the fair industry, which is very much its own ball of wax.
It's
What's
definitely its own animal. Yeah.
Yeah, what surprised you most when you came in, coming through that first year, your first fair? What were the things that really was like that hit you like, oh my God, how does that work?
It was the history, really, because I mean, this is our 112th year as a fair. And so I get why people are like, we've always done it this way because there's so much history here
Yeah,
and these long-standing relationships. I mean, venue management's another place where we all kind of know each other, but we know each other in terms of I've met you at a conference or I saw you at that event that one time. Not like I spent 3 weeks with you getting a fair put up and run. And so I mean, I think people here know each other on a little bit deeper level because you see each other. The 10 days of load in, the 11 or however many days of the fair, and the 5 or 6 days of load out, you live together practically.
yep,
Um, it's a whole new level of relationship. So it's a little intense.
It does get to be a little intense, especially living on grounds. For so many years when I was performing prior to doing Play with Giants, I would always have in the contract that, I'd have a hotel covered and that's where I stayed. And then a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I bought the RV, actually living, well, it's for me is way more convenient to be on property. Boy, it's different. There's a whole, it's like this out of nowhere in this giant grass field and parking lots all across America. All of a sudden, this miniature city for 10 days gets set up. And then in the blink of an eye, it's gone.
Yeah, that's totally different than any other part of the entertainment industry, other than, being on tour with somebody or something like that. But I mean, you know, the carnival operators, like we have Frank with Wade Shows here. I
Yep,
mean, so many people know him so well because he literally lives at their grounds for, 3 weeks out of the year or whatever. And
for sure.
it's a different level of relationship. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Um, what do you think some of the challenges that you're facing that let me rephrase this. You did your first fair. Certainly you had challenges with it. What were those challenges and what are the adjustments you've made coming in for 2024?
Well, a couple of them I think I already addressed. Trying to get
Sure.
more traffic in places that didn't get traffic just due to the way things flowed. So we're trying to work on fixing the flow and fixing the flow on the ingress to the venue. We have one major main entrance and a couple of little small side entrances. And this year we're trying to better utilize our east entrance. Frank's helping us out with that, getting us a big lit up gate that'll attract some attention over there, so we can
Okay.
hopefully um, not have quite that big bottleneck at the front gates.
Well, yeah, and
Lighting.
50, anybody who has ever driven in front of your fairgrounds knows that Colonial Drive is a bottleneck almost all hours of the day,
On a good
even
day, yeah.
even when the fair is not there. Like when there's good traffic, it's a bottleneck on 50.
It is, and I mean we're working on that, you know, overall because we do giant events out here, not just the fair. And yeah, we will traffic will shut down on 50 sometimes because people trying to take a ride and get in the fairgrounds. So I mean that's a longer term project to really solve that problem.
For sure.
But if at least if we can get them in and get them parked, we're concentrating this year on trying to get them in faster.
Yeah.
So that's one of our goals. And we didn't have a lot of sponsorships, and we're doing better this year with sponsorships, but we've got to do better about telling people what we're worth. I mean, when I got here and started going out for sponsorships, people were just kind of like, oh, it's the fair. Who goes to the fair?
Mm,
So we have to raise our profile and the awareness of people in the community that, we are here and we're busy year round. Sponsoring our venue and our grounds is very valuable. The number of people that come through here a year, yeah, we're definitely worth supporting.
yeah. No, I would agree. I mean, especially when you've got the community that you're in that can use all the local support that it can get.
Yes.
Sarah and I, our family is intimately familiar with the Pine Hills area. When we lived in Orlando back in 2007, Sarah taught at one of the elementary schools that is right around the corner from you guys. And
Okay.
yeah, she was up at Molly Ray, and that's it's a tough neighborhood, but it's still a community that's worth presenting a great fair for and a good event for, so that families do have something they can look forward to.
Yeah, and we're working this year in addition to putting on the fair we've always put on, is trying to expand our base a little bit. What I noticed last year walking around was just you get a lot of young parents and young kids, and you get a lot of grandparents with kids. You don't get a lot of 20, 30, 40 somethings that are
Sure.
just coming out for a date night or whatever. Nobody thinks of the fairs for a date night. So we went out of our way this year to program some things in the beer garden and the Bazaar Boulevard area that, it kind of appeals to that 25 to 40-ish market. And
Sure.
hopefully people think this is and come out here and hang out. You may not ride the rides, but you're going to enjoy the fair food and the free entertainment and all those
Yep.
things. So
Well, and if you think about it, there are a number of fairs right there in Central Florida. Osceola down in Kissimmee also comes to mind that are suffering from the same thing you are, which is how do you appeal to a local community, like you say, to the 20 something to come to the fair for a date night when they've got SeaWorld, Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure, they got
yeah,
theme parks all over all the Disney World. Like you're up against the tip of the spear when it comes
Mm,
to family attractions. And how do you
we
even
really are.
compete with that?
Well, that was our tagline this year was affordable family fun. So I think the difference we have is we are extremely affordable when you compare us against a Disney and a Universal. I
Yep.
mean, kids under six get in free. Kids over seven to 12 are like $5. We've got so many different promotions where you can get in for $1 opening night. There's a $2
Yeah.
Tuesday. There's all these promotions we're running that can get you in the fair for a very reasonable price. And I think that's something, we have a lot to offer and it's not going to break the bank. Whereas, you got to mortgage your house to go to Universal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's those just for grins, even though I'm out here in New Mexico, I looked at what Disney's charging now for an annual pass, and I think of what when we had like the premier annual pass when we lived there. Like we got everything. You don't even get like the bottom of the barrel for that price anymore.
Yeah, no, they've really curtailed the perks they offer to you, and I don't think there's a Florida residence anymore. If it is, it's not much of a discount anymore like it used to be. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's Disney's always going to be the 100-pound gorilla in the room, but it's getting harder to rationalize going out there more than like once a year. The prices we've
Yeah.
got.
Yeah, I mean I don't know. For me, and maybe this is just part of my age. I love Disney. My wife and I met there when we were working on the college program in 2000. Um, and so Disney always holds a special place for us in our hearts. And yet I think the older I get, between all the political nonsense that they've gotten involved with, and between the fact that I just don't, and this is going to be crazy for somebody who works in the event industry, I don't like big crowds.
Same. I say that all the time.
Like
And people are like, why?
I'm in the wrong
Yeah.
business. Well, like honestly, when I have as much as I would have, I prefer a little bit better, better traffic flow and Play with Giants and what we had it with you guys last year. Just and we've talked about how the traffic is on that building. But some of the fairs that I've done were on a Friday night, my eyes are bugging. I'm like, it is shoulder to shoulder in here. I'm like, I don't like any of you people.
I know. I'm very much the same way. It's funny. I say that all the time that I'm not a big crowd person. And my partner's like, then why do you do what you do? I'm like, I don't know. I've just always done it. But I don't want to be out there in the middle of it. Like I will stand on the porch and watch it go by and get involved if I have to. But
For
it's,
sure.
I don't
That's what
like
you
being
got.
out there.
That's what you got Jackie for. Jackie is there to save the day.
Still got thirst and elbows.
So
At
well,
least a cow.
you mentioned all this new stuff that you got going on at the fair this year. If someone were to call you up and say, "Hey, I'm new to the area. I want to bring the family out on a Thursday afternoon or something to the fair," what would you recommend an afternoon at the fair would look like for them? What should they eat? What shows should they see? What ride should they go on, etc.
Oh wow. Well, I guess it depends on if you're coming with kids and what you want to do. But
So let's say it's a
we got
family. Let's say it's mom, dad, and an 8-year-old kid. What's your recommendation?
oh geez. Well, get here early. It gets crazier the later in the evening it gets because it gets more packed. So I would definitely get here early and enjoy things before it gets too crowded. Get a ride van, get out there and ride everything you want to ride. We've got some cool new rides coming in this year. Wade's worked with us to bring in more rides than we have had in the past couple of years. Um, and then the food, I mean, half the reason to come to the fair is the food, right? So
Oh, at least half
last
the
year,
reason.
last year I saw deep fried chocolate covered bacon, and I had never even heard of that before. But you got to try that. I mean, come on. And we've actually got quite a large variety of food. We got the traditional, funnel cakes and turkey legs and things like that. But we've got local vendors in here too. So I mean, come check out some of our local food trucks. You might find your favorite new restaurant in here. And then there's free entertainment every single night, whether it's in the beer garden or the amphitheater or Bazaar Boulevard. We have something free every night. So come early, stay late, and make a night of it.
Excellent. Um, so let's shift gears a little bit here. You say you're not really a fair person. You come from performing arts. No doubt then if you've done performing arts, you've done conventions similar to like IFE or Florida Fed, but in the
Mm.
performing arts space. What were some of your takeaways since last year would have been your first Florida Fed convention? What were some of your takeaways from that convention?
Oh man. I'm gonna try and be positive after I say this. That was the weirdest convention I've ever been to in my life. I have never, of all the trade shows I've been to a lot of them in performing arts primarily. I have never had people pop out at me and just like literally like lay hands on me and grab me and kind of accost me going through the showroom floor. And I had to leave. I literally had
Wait,
to
in the
leave.
trade show, they were reaching out,
Yeah.
like grabbing your arm, going, "Here, come look at this."
Yes. Yes. And
Not
I mean,
acceptable.
literally,
I mean, I've heard our show like IFE and whatnot. I've always heard of it described as bizarre, weird, whatnot. But it's like you get people dressed up as like a cheetah on stilts. Like, yeah, we have a really weird circusy vibe, but they were grabbing you. That's not
they
acceptable.
would they would literally, and I mean, all the trade shows I've been to before is like, you stay in your booth, and I will come up and talk to you if I want to talk to you. No, these people will chase you down the hallway, and I literally left at one point, and I'm like, that is not okay, and they're like, oh, we always do that, like, not
No,
okay. So,
no. Well, we're gonna chat with
I
associates and be a little bit more reminding of that because that, they were even around my booth. They're not supposed to perform in the aisle. Like if you want to
yeah,
be on your stilts or whatever, cool, but you need to be within the booth. And the couple of booths next to me, they're literally, I'm trying to talk to you or somebody, and there's stilt
yeah.
walkers right behind me, and I'm like, that you stay in your booth.
Yeah, it was a little jarring for someone I'm used to going to trade shows and things like that and conventions, but I'm used to being a little bit more orderly and there's some rules involved and it really kind of freaked me out. So
We're gonna fix that.
yeah, it was last year. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna do this again. But it was interesting because it was nice to get, especially for someone new to the fair industry, to be able to see so many varieties of shows and options in one place. It's a little overwhelming, especially when you're new to it and you got to figure out what will work with you. But I enjoyed it, and I mean, we ended up finding a new ticketing provider there and
Oh,
all
good,
sorts of things.
good.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Now, we're gearing up just a few months away from your second run at Florida Fed's convention.
Mhm.
Other than hopefully they don't accost you in the aisles this year, which I should apologize for that because I was the outgoing associate director. I wish I had been more aware of that because I would have gone and harped on people because it kind of ruins it for everybody because then anybody hoping to get a shot to have a discussion with you and you're like, nah, I'm out of here. And
That was the
so if
I found
I'm waiting to have 5 minutes with you at the trade show and now I lose that shot because someone else ran up, but they were all over top of you trying to here, take my flyer, take my flyer, take my
mm,
flyer. And I'm like, oof, we got to fix that.
yeah, I found the lady in the back that had the massage chairs and went and hid back there for a while and got a massage.
Okay, note to self. Bring
Like, all
massage
right.
chairs to the Play with Giants booth. That's how you're going to get the fair managers to come hang with you.
So after a few minutes of massage chair, I'm like, all right, I think I could do this again and went back out. So
Yeah.
it's
Um,
it was very weird. And but when I mentioned it to my staff who's all been before, they were like, oh yeah, that's always that way. I'm like, that's not normal.
Okay, no. Yeah, see and
That's
here
not
we go.
normal.
Well, we've always done it that way. And
Yeah.
almost every convention I go to, if it's IFE, Steve Seaver sends out the email that's like reminder, you need to stay in your booth. You cannot
Uh,
be chasing people up and down the aisles. You can't do that. And I'm pretty sure it's in the rules with Florida as well, but I'm not the guy that enforces the rules, but maybe whoever the person is that's like needs to go, get back in your booth. Maybe we need to focus a little more on that and wrench down on that. Because honestly, as somebody who's an exhibitor, that kind of behavior annoys the hell out of me too.
yeah, well, it basically teaches you don't make eye contact with anybody because they're going to come at you. So
Man,
you
I
just sort
used
of
to when
keep,
I
keep
started this
well.
podcast back in 2020, I used to ask in the speed the lightning round question. I used to ask fair managers at IFE, is it the first day, second day, or third day that you flip your badge backwards so people quit bothering you? And they all kind of had this they always would have this look like, oh, we do that, huh? Yeah, we know you do that. But it shouldn't
That
have
that
to
was
be that way. It shouldn't have to be that
that
way.
was the advice when I stepped out and was like, oh God, I can't do that. That was what my staff told me. They're like, turn your badge around.
Yep. See, everybody knows, and yet when nobody wants to do anything to fix it. So, all right, Florida Fed, we're gonna fix it. We're going to be the first trade show ever where people actually stay in their booths and are respectful and mind their space.
Can we do one of those invisible fences like I have for my dog?
Yes, maybe that's it. Maybe all of us as exhibitors need to have like the little shot collar. We'll put shot collars on, and if we exit our booth, we get zapped.
I support this.
Yes, yes, I love that. Very casually. Oh, actually, Robert, I support that. Well, let's talk a little bit here and focus more on you personally, so that folks can get to know you. If you're coming from outside the industry, there's not a lot of people within fairs that know who Michael is. What's one thing about you that people might be surprised to learn? Oh, he's thinking. Is that smoke coming out of your ears while you're thinking of this one?
No, I mean, I think in the fair industry, just like the venue management industry, I'm probably one of the very few. I was one of the very few gay general managers in venue management. I think I'm one of the very few gay fair managers. So
Sure.
it's there's not a lot of us in the fair. I wouldn't say from the people I've met. So
Yeah.
it's not the most defining thing about who I am, but it is something about me, and it's been interesting in the fair industry. It's a little bit different than performing arts. So
How is it? What are the differences on those?
performing arts is a whole lot more diverse, I'll say. I mean, people tend to not really they expect you to be a little different, and I'm not particularly artistic or anything like that, but I mean, when you're around theater and ballet and opera and all that stuff all the time, you kind of expect people
Tends to attract more of that
necessarily.
crowd. Well, that makes sense because I
Yeah.
remember when Sarah and I worked for Disney. The average cast member at Disney that's scooping your ice cream or stocking the shelves is probably straight. But when you go to the entertainment side, in the shows, in the parades, the characters, all that, it's the LGB environment that's there. The number of people there, it goes up significantly. And I think it's just something about there's a level of creativity that comes from that and that demographic that naturally I think lends itself to being performers, to dressing up, to doing shows, to doing entertainment. So I think that probably explains a little bit of why you see more in that performing arts side than you do on the fair side. I don't know about on the I don't think you go out to the average barns on a fairgrounds and that population is super represented.
No, not at all. But I mean, we've got a great livestock group here, and so
Yeah.
I enjoy them. But we've done a few things this year. We've brought Pride Night back, and it was very successful last year. But it's not like it's something I go overboard to concentrate on. But
Right.
I want to make this a nice, welcoming, and accepting place for everybody to feel
For
safe
everybody.
coming out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's one of the things that I admired about the Texas Rangers. They're one of the few teams that their attitude and their marketing is, are you straight? Come watch Texas Rangers baseball. Are you part of the LGBTQIA group? Come watch Texas Rangers baseball. Are you Black Lives Matter? Are you pro Trump? Are you pro Biden? Come watch Texas Rangers baseball? They don't care.
Yeah.
They want because at the end of the day, money is green. And we at the end of the day, you guys have a budget. You got a P&L you got to run. And the Texas Rangers got a P&L and I've got a P&L. And like at the end of the day, is everybody that comes into my exhibit and play with giants, are they having fun? That's all I care about. I've seen, families that are military families that are probably broke, white families, black families, gay families. I just want listen, my job at Play with Giants is to make sure that families have fun together and they learn a little bit about farming and ranching while they're in my exhibit. Have I achieved that? Then I don't care. Are you a Biden supporter? It doesn't matter to me. I want everybody to have fun. We can all have our personal beliefs on the side, but like we are in business to make money and to grow our businesses and achieve whatever our mission statements are. And I think you guys in Central Florida do it really well.
We're trying really hard. Like I said, this year we have a lot of different initiatives. We've got a Stars and Stripes night where we're military first responders get in free and there's a free concert.
Yep.
We got an HBCU night, we have a Latin night, we have a Pride night, we have an ASL festival going on here for sign language. So literally have almost everything going on here.
You doing
And
ASL at the fair?
there is a group that reached out and wanted to do an ASL festival. They'd done it before in another smaller venue. And because there's a ASL awareness
Interesting.
week, I believe, and it lined up with a fair. So we have a building we set aside to do a lot of these theme nights in. And I was like, well, you can't rent the fairgrounds because the fair's here, but if you want to be a part of our fair, I'll do what I've done for all these other, kind of specialty nights is you can have this room with a stage in it. You can have vendors, you can have tables in there, and we'll do food and drinks in there for you. And
Right.
you're welcome to be a part of it. And so, I mean, there's a demographic that I don't know has ever been invited to come to a fair.
That's really interesting. I've often thought because a lot of times and you see it more, I think, at theme parks simply because of budget. They have the ability, Disney's got like the closed captioning devices and whatnot. But every now and then you'll actually see interpreters, sign language interpreters. And I've always wondered, you got a magician doing a show on a stage or a circus and they're singing or dancing or whatever they're doing. Um, and there's no interpreter there. But what if there's someone in the crowd that's hard of hearing that they do sign language and they're kind of left out?
Yeah, and when I was in performing arts, that was an easy fix. Is people usually were familiar with the fact that if you call ahead and let us know you were coming, we
Mhm.
would arrange an interpreter. And it was just an ADA thing that we did.
Sure.
And there's a lot of those things in performing arts that I would like to see come to the fair industry, but that's not one that has yet. So I'm glad to get this group in, and I hope they have a great time and continue to come back and bring their families and the next
Absolutely.
generations of people
Well,
to
and
learn.
maybe they're able to you start a relationship with this group and maybe they can come on board and you guys come to some arrangement where they're standing at the side of the stage of the magic show interpreting while there's a group
Yeah.
watching the show, and maybe you can establish a partnership there. If you weren't a fair manager or weren't, let's say at large of what you've really done in your career, an event manager, what do you think you'd be doing?
I started out as a music major, and then I taught German in high school. So I guess I would, if I hadn't gone down this very strange path I went down, I'd probably still
That is
still be teaching German.
that's definitely an interesting path, man. Like so you majored in music and then you
Did.
taught German and now you end up being a fair manager. That's
Yeah, I majored in music, and my second you have to learn a foreign language in college, obviously. So I picked German because it made sense with music, and then I played the oboe, and it gave me such
interesting.
bad headaches that I just said, "Forget it, I'm done." And switched my major over to German. And one of my professors happened to be the business agent for the stagehands in Tallahassee. And he was
Gotcha.
like, you know what? I can get you a job where you're not working these crazy hours and you're getting paid more money. How about it? So I went to go work as a stagehand in 1995, and been working in theater ever since.
That was like 10 years ago.
Feels like it, but no.
So you say you play the oboe and it gave you a headache. That's interesting because my son Nate is he's 13, he's in seventh grade and he's in the band at his middle school and he plays the baritone sax. And when he plays, it gives me a headache. So that's like it's kind of really wild how that like instruments give people headaches.
They can
Um,
particularly learning the saxophone. The squeaks are devastating.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, man, you've really got an interesting story. I'm curious if you could go back in time and tell 15-year-old Michael something, what would you tell your younger self?
Do better at math.
Do better at math. How would that have benefited you long run?
My dad wanted me to be an engineer, and yeah, probably would have made more money in the long run over there. But
Hey, well, you are an engineer. You are an event engineer,
pretty much, yeah.
right? Let's be serious. You're an event engineer. That's what all you guys do. Like you're putting together experiences for people, and it's I think it's admirable. It's certainly looking at your arc, your character arc through your life. Um, That's really interesting. It's one of the most fascinating ones that of anyone that I've spoken to. Because a lot of people were like, oh, I started in 4-H and then I joined FFA and then I went and, I got a conventional job for a few years. But then my dad, who was on the board of a fair, like there's always a fair connection for almost
Always a
all
fair
of it.
connection. Yeah.
And then you come out of nowhere. You're like, yeah, I was speaking German, teaching German. And then I, started working in theater stuff. And now, boom, I'm at the Central Florida Fair.
Yeah, I kind of came out of left field. Although my predecessor, Sean, I mean, he came from South Florida Fair, but
Yep.
his concentration, I think, is more in the events industry than fair in particular. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
don't know that I'm carved from a completely separate tree there, but yeah, it's I don't know. The board saw something they liked, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm glad they picked me. I'm happy to be here, but and I'm learning to do a fair. It's
Yeah.
last year we did well. We did better than the year before, and hopefully this year we do even better than that. So
Well, I mean, I feel like
I'll
that's
figure it out
kind of
when
the thing. You were probably, yeah, it's really the coming out of COVID has been tough. And a lot of the fair managers I talk to, they're disappointed because right now they're like, oh, we were, last year they're like, oh, we were down 12%. I'm like, from what? And they were like, well, from 2022. And I'm like, you lost 20 and you lost 21. Your 22 is going to be an anomaly. You almost have to gauge your budget off of what your 2019 numbers were because
yeah,
that's
because you
more
had a couple.
realistic. Like 21, 22, those first fairs back were anomalies almost across the board. So like you got to give, I think fair managers, you guys and your boards have to give yourselves some breathing room to go, okay, there's going to be some fluctuation this first few years back.
Yeah, as we try and figure out what normal is now, because
Right.
there was normal, then there was COVID normal, and now there's
And
something else.
it's the $20 million question right there is what the heck is normal going to be? Well, listen, man, we've been chatting for coming up on 40 minutes now. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Everybody who comes on the show, we do a little lightning round of questions. I'm going to ask you 4 or 5 quick questions. You just give me your best answer. Are you ready?
Sure. I think
He's like, I think I could be. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
mind reading.
No, that's dangerous. That's That's mine. That's also mine. Excellent. Best fair food.
The corn, street corn,
Oh, sprinkle. Okay, cool. Favorite movie.
the birdcage.
Speaking
Robin
of,
Williams.
oh yeah, Robin was God. He was king. God rest his soul. Speaking of film and television, if you could have a guest role on any TV series, what series would it be?
Does it have to still be on TV?
I'll give you a movie. You can have a TV or what are you asking? Like if it's on Netflix or if it's gone off the air?
If it's gone off the TV, can
Yeah,
I still
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. Any show.
Big Bang Theory?
Oh, Big Bang is classic. Who was your favorite character?
Sheldon. I have a dog named Sheldon, so yeah, it was definitely Sheldon.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot you do have a dog named Sheldon, and man, I will just give you this credit as someone who's a dog lover myself. Like for all the content you could post on Facebook, the fact that it is almost always your dogs, I'm like, that dog needs a snuggle. I love seeing your dogs.
I love my doggies, and I learned a long time ago when Facebook first became a thing. Don't post anything political, personal, anything that you don't want everybody in the world to know. So I
Right.
tend to concentrate on my dogs.
Right. Well, it's kind of tough to get in trouble when you're just posting your dogs, but like
Everyone loves dogs.
I don't know, man. With social media, you never know what's going to get in trouble. Like, there's a guy I follow named Jocko Willink. He's a former Navy SEAL. And literally, if you go to his Instagram, it's 900 pictures of his watch that he takes a picture at like 4:30 in the morning when he goes to the gym. And his things like, get some, work out hard, right? Leave it all on the mat. Right. That's it. It's literally just a picture of his watch. And at one point, he got like suspended for it. Like, who got
For
offended
watch
by a
pictures?
picture of like an old Timex watch?
Oh,
Social media is a crazy place, man.
people really can get offended by anything, I guess. All right.
Anything, anything. Anyhow, man, listen, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about the Central Florida Fair?
CentralFloridaFair.com is our webpage. We got all of our information up there. And I am Michael at CentralFloridaFair.com. It's pretty easy to remember.
Pretty easy. It's Michael at CentralFloridaFair.com. Michael, I really appreciate your time today. It was nice getting to know you, and it's really interesting getting to know a little bit more about your character arc. I will look forward to visiting with you here in a few months at Florida Fed.
I will
For
see
the
you there.
All right.
Please don't jump out at me from your booth.
Oh, no, I don't, man, I'm too old. My knees don't work. There's no more jumping in these knees. To our listeners, thanks again so much for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.